Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're out at SIG in New Hampshire, and we want to have a conversation with Phil Strider here.
Hello.
And we're going to talk about the SIG P320. And I'm sure many of you watching this video are familiar with some of the controversies going on with the P320. I just wanted to let you guys know up front, I'm not here to defend the handgun. I'm not here to condemn the handgun. I'm here for informational purposes. I'm supposed to be a consumer advocate. I carry SIG products. They're SIG products I love. That I was thoroughly impressed. I'm not trying to defend SIG, guys. And now the P365 is one of my favorite carry guns. But I knew when you guys came out with it, it was going to be a game changer.
And I know that there's going to be a lot of angry users out there, but weird. It's like we almost have nothing to hide.
And I'm not trying to defend SIG, guys. Now they're telling you not to carry your gun loaded. That is suspicious. Why now?
What we have to keep in mind, and what we're trying to keep in mind, is that we don't know the philosophy of use, as it's a catchphrase that's out there now, or we have to take for granted that they're going to read the owner's manual and use that as a guide on how to actually operate this firearm. To let people know that the most effective safety would be to carry around not in the chambers. But now, with all that said, Sig Sauer does not endorse carrying a method of carry. We're not putting language out there that says you shouldn't carry this gun without a round in the chamber. We're simply saying there's an option that's even safer.
But yeah, that's the extent of my questions. I thank you for answering all the questions I had. I know some of them probably a little uneasy. It's like, oh, here we go.
Not at all.
I'm not trying to defend SIG, guys. So I know that you guys are constantly doing changes. It would be insane. And I'm not trying to defend SIG, guys, but it would be insane to me with all the changes you're making to address anything that you want to, any improvement you're trying to make. It would be insane to me that you would be like, oh, let's slide in a change here and fix this problem. Let's just make this go away.
Yeah, it's purely coincidental. Timing was impeccable.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you're having a wonderful day today. It is unfortunately a day that ends in Y, so we are talking about Sig Sauer because it has been how long since it ended? Like a month now? Jeez. But I hope everyone is having a wonderful night tonight. I think in terms of guests, we're going to be very light tonight, very light. So we should be able to breeze right through this as fast as possible, skating over thin ice, as they say. So let's go ahead and get Mr. Richard in here. How's your night going, sir? Fantastic. Good to hear. Going to go ahead and pour out a cold one for the boys.
Yep. Having a wonderful time. Hope everybody's having a good night.
Yeah. All right, so not to beat around the bush, poor choice of words, but we are going to be talking about the SIGMAC response because in his infinite wisdom, Tim at Military Arms Channel decided to post a 55-minute interview on his channel with some of the guys at SIG, which is not distinctly different from carrying water for them, I suppose you say, which is much safer than carrying a SIG P320 and also possibly more profitable. Now, before we get into that today, I do want to say that the last time we covered military arms on this channel, he did copyright claim the entire stream. So actually, I'm fighting it right now. But the last time we talked about Tim, he did copyright claim that entire stream, and he's taken the entirety of the revenue. It's currently in escrow until they solve it. So it is currently still in the backdoor process if Tim wants to either issue a copyright strike or release the copyright claim on the original stream. So if I had to guess, he's probably going to claim this stream as well, even though it's highly edited, highly transformative, and therefore my own original content, and he has no right to do so. But this is Tim that we're talking about, so if I had to guess, he is probably going to copyright claim this video as well. But that is kind of the foreground before we get into everything.
Well, the only thing I have to say about that is
Gay.
Oof. Hyper gay. Yeah, probably a lot. So before we get into this, Mitchell Black for 199, thank you very much, says Mac and Cheeks. Very true. Mac and Cheeks clapping really young girls' cheeks or something like that, because that's what he's into on Instagram, if I remember correctly. Noob Actual. I'm gonna come. Noob Actual for 499 says, first stream I've gotten to early in a while. Really enjoy the streams. 2 Corinthians 5:21. Well, I don't know that off the top of my head, so I will have to 5:21. That is, for he hath made him to be sin for us who knew no sin, that we might be made the righteousness of God in him. This verse conveys that Jesus, who was sinless, took on the sins of humanity. Great verse. Thank you very much, sir. And thank you for the 499. Hope you're having a great night tonight. Logan for $5 says, I wonder how much of this stream at Mac is going to copyright. Well, he can't. He shouldn't be able to copyright any of it, because the section of the only interesting stuff, even worth responding to, is about 17 minutes long that I've clipped out here. And it's highly edited. We're going to go over it for the purposes of review and critique. It's also newsworthy as well. And there's lots of cope in this video that should be fun. So this is entirely transformative, which makes it completely fair use. But he will attempt to copyright claim as much of it as possible. So... But before we get into that, there's been a lot of news. So you guys might have seen the video that I put out this morning, which I should probably bring up real fast, just because I know I've gotten a lot of questions on it. The comments on it are very interesting. Have you seen the video, Richard?
So I got part of the way into both of these videos, and I got distracted with some other news. So I've tried to keep up throughout the day, but I did only see part of it, and it was when there was about, I'd say 1,500 views on it, so it was very early in the comment period as well. So,
yeah, the Coop Club, great memes. I also use part of his memes in the intro here. It says, "Go ahead and flag my meme, Tim. I'll totally make fun of you more." Yeah, it doesn't work. It does not work. So basically, if you guys haven't seen this video, just a quick little descriptor of it. I published this just very serendipitous timing, very close to the time that Tim put out his video, his interview with Sig Sauer. And this is
one way for the P320 to go off. There's actually 3. Remember how Gungus...
This is a real voice transcripted and then using an AI voiceover to protect the identity of the original source that I put out today. And he has all sorts of claims about what parts are going into the 320. Essentially, lots of parts that were originally designed to be stamped were mimed, and not only mimed, but they were mimed poorly over in India to save about $30 off the total cost for all of the different parts that they substituted. Lots of different problems, lots of interesting things in this video. You should go check it out, as it's a good precursor and a good antidote to the poison pill that is the video we're about to watch. So that's what you should go check out there. But I did want to mention that because I did get a lot of questions about that. Also today, the SIG Armor was going to publish his findings for a fix for the P320. And also another thing that they did today that I didn't post yet, but the 320s in a trench coat channel also posted a fix for a bad sear engagement on their YouTube channel. So that is also out there. But I'll go ahead and let this video play real fast, because apparently the SIG Armor came into some new information that he needs to track down before actually releasing his findings.
SIG Armor, Monday afternoon, 2 o'clock, May 12th, 2025. Last week, I'd announced that I was going to provide my thoughts on the P320 reported uncommanded discharge problem. However, since then, I've been reached out to by multiple outlets providing me with data that I didn't previously have. And I must analyze that data to make sure that we are thorough and accurate with our findings, and we can make statements that we truly stand behind. As such, we're going to have to postpone the release of our findings until all of this data is sifted through, because our reputation is built on unwavering honesty and accuracy, and it would be a disservice to all of you if we didn't take this new information that we just received into account before we make our findings. So we appreciate your understanding. Thanks for watching. Hey folks, it's Robert over.
So essentially there's some new information coming out. I do like the comments on this video. It says, understandable. You wouldn't want to go off unless you're ready. Yeah, blink twice if you're in danger. Also true. I do expect to get a cease and desist from SIG at some point. They are a fairly litigious company, and publishing that video that I did today from a source who may or may not be inside of SIG might be grounds for a cease and desist. So I do expect something from SIG on that front. But at this point, it's all coming to a head, so I'm not really worried about it. At some point, they won't be able to hide or lawyer their way out of it anymore. So that's my personal stance going forward. Also of note, Grantham apparently has a P320 that went off inside of a holster in for his own testing. So that should be very interesting to see what he finds, because I mentioned this in the Discord earlier, but Grantham is infinitely more set up to do this sort of testing than somebody like me, even though I'm going to be doing my own testing as well with the 320 and then the batch of bad parts that I ordered specifically for it. But he's actually has a lot more access to different guns, to experts, time, money, all of that sort of stuff to actually put out a really good video. Whether or not he does, that's totally up to him. But in theory, Grantham should be able to put out a pretty comprehensive video. So that should be coming at some point in the future. And again, allegedly, one of the guns that he has in testing is one that did go off in a holster, right? So that should be interesting. As long as it doesn't end up being a... another carrying water piece for SIG. Now, I don't know, I get this question a lot. It's about P365s. It's like, hey, do they have the same issues as the 320? And the answer is no. They have different issues than the 320. So this is another one with I believe a striker safety return spring thingy that is very cheap and broken. And this is one of the guys with Carry Trainer who just goes off saying, hey, they just have problems. All the little parts you go bad eventually. So you have to be very up to date on your maintenance cycle, even for something like a P365, which doesn't have the same issues as the 320. It has completely different issues. Quite nice.
Very much so. When they first came out, they had two different examples for rent at my local range that does rentals. They were out of commission for roughly 6 months. Every time I would go in, and I would go in nearly every weekend at that time, they were either broken or in the process of being repaired every single time. They could not get through more than about 1,000 rounds without the sear just breaking. The tip of the sear would just break, or the striker where the sear engagement is, not the sear itself breaking.
Right. I know what you mean. Yeah, no, they've had problems since the beginning, which is going to contrast quite nicely with some of the argumentation in the video itself. Speaking of SIG, though, SIG for $4.99 says loaded, unloaded, we don't care. You don't even have to carry it. Just buy more. 10% off everything. Very funny. I did get an email a little bit before the stream started from a very big what's it called? Distributor, and they were like, hey, guess what? All 320s on sale now. And it was literally like every single model of 320 they had was, front page banner ad, X amount of dollars off for that, which I thought was quite funny, quite good timing. Chuck for $2. This is an important point. Says, how much do you think SIG paid Mac? The sad reality is that it might have been $0. Some people's standards are so low that if giving them access and free stuff and making them feel like a special boy is enough for them to sell their soul.
Wasn't he just at their HQ posting?
Yes, that's where this video is filmed. This is in New Hampshire. He is at their headquarters. He was invited there. He got to shoot all their new stuff. He got to shoot their LMGs and stuff like that. He posted something super cringe on Instagram or something about shooting the XM250, and he was like, wow, that just happened. It's like Marvel millennial zoomer humor maxed up Hello, fellow kids. It's really cringy.
Yeah, I did catch that. That much I did catch. And it's like, at one point in time he used to be slightly objective, and over the years he has just continued down this path, and
Oh.
I hate to see it.
Sig gave Mac an OnlyFans gift card.
Ooh.
Yeah. Gotta get those discount codes. Jake for $4.99 says, "Hope you can pay your rent, Sean." Well, thank you very much. For $4.99 says, "Give these Sig Rose heck. Christ is king." Thank you very much for the $4.99, sir. I will put that directly towards rent. 6 Hour for $1.99 says, "Fast fix for the 320 by staccato." Well, that's an expensive fix, but thank you very much for the $1.99. 6 Hour for $4.99 says, "GT gonna get the 320 pregnant, probably twins. So what's different or what's worse, a uncommanded discharge or a negligent discharge?" The Sig is apparently hating Trench in chat for some reason, because I see Trench in here hanging out. Hope you're having a good night, sir. But Sig says, "Trench, puberty called, said it'll see you soon," for $4.99. Oh my gosh. Sig, the only thing Sig hates more than its own customers is Trench Grenade for some reason. Unbelievable. But all right, let's go ahead and we're 15 minutes in. So you can't copyright claim the first 15 minutes of the video, surely, right? We just showed it off. So, but let's go ahead and actually get into the Sig Mac response. It's like a Big Mac, but instead of heart failure, it just gives you a hole in your leg.
Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're out
And he
in
claimed
New
it.
Hampshire, and
It's gone. And we're down. It's over, bros.
Hey guys, welcome back. So today
Okay. All right, here we go. Sorry.
we're out at SIG in New Hampshire, and we want to have a conversation with Phil Strider here.
Hello.
And we're going to talk about the SIG P320. And I'm sure many of you watching this video are familiar with some of the controversies going on.
Now, Phil Strider, I think I met him at SHOT Show this year. I'm going to actually be devil's advocate for Mr. Phil here. He may have drawn the short straw to do this interview. And so I think that there are lots of good people that work at SIG, some of whom I may or may not have talked to, who don't like what's going on, but to keep their job and, the compromise that they've made is that they're trying to change things internally, but externally they are keeping with the company motto of it's everybody else's fault. So I don't blame Phil for anything. This interview, though, is kind of funny. So just want to say that I think I might have met him at SHOT Show this year, but I honestly can't remember. I just meet a lot of people. So
Going on with the P320. I just wanted to let you guys know up front, I'm not here to defend the handgun. I'm not here to condemn the handgun. I'm here for informational purposes. And yeah, it's truly impressive. Opening the video, we were
so he says, "I'm not here to bash. I'm not here to praise." Everything in the video is a praise, I want to say. And there's almost no pushback. I think if you watch Ben Steger's video that he just put out on this, he said it's not hardball, it's not softball, it's not even T-ball or something like that, which I thought was quite funny. So the interview is essentially a puff piece. It's not a real interview. It is just SIG using Tim's channel as a PSA, I suppose.
talking about some of the conversations going on about the handgun.
Right.
And I have a list of questions that I want to go through here. And, feel free to expand upon the question and get out any information that you want to share with the audience regarding the P320.
But what made that gun unique was it was one of the first pistols, that was in production that would be completely modular, and that you could take the frame completely out and change the grips. It's one of the attributes that the P320 has been recognized for and is most well known for. And that was an attribute of this gun.
So essentially what I cut out there, because there was like a 5-minute background history on the SIG P250, which was then converted to the P320 to make military contracts, essentially, because they wanted a striker-fired handgun with a modular chassis. And then SIG was like, hey, we already have something like that. Surely this can work. So that is the story behind the 320 and how it came to be. It was molested into being a striker-fired gun. It was transitioned forcibly from hammer to striker. So,
and it was
You mean it had its hammer cut off?
It did. It did have its hammer cut off for an internal striker design. Yes. Ouch.
The downside, obviously, was this is the infamous pre-upgrade model.
You'll probably find that there are a lot of handguns out there that I call it the dingus, you call it.
So just talking about the pre-upgrade model, I have the pre-upgrade model. I have that one here. So it has all of the issues for the voluntary upgrade program that SIG put out in 2019, because the triggers are heavy enough to go off on their own. If they're dropped, the trigger can have enough inertia to actually deactivate all the safeties and get that sear to go, right? The updated version of the gun is essentially just way less material on the trigger so that it has less inertia if it gets dropped. And then they also have a secondary sear catch. Mine does not have those safety features, which you're like, oh, well, you know, that's not the fault of the gun. SIG upgraded some of them. The point being is that I bought that gun used, unknowing if it had any of those safety features. And there are hundreds of thousands of them floating around, if not millions of them in existence, because I think the number that he's going to quote in this video is somewhere around 3.5 million SIG P320s are in existence. Half of them or less are pre-upgrade, and probably not very many of them actually got sent in to do the upgrade if they were pre-upgrade in the first place.
And is that civilian or is that total?
He says total. Well, I think he says in circulation, so it's not entirely clear how many are in military service. Because again, remember that they have military contracts not just in the US, but all over the world for the P320. So the number quoted is 3.5 million. I am going to interpret that as total.
Okay.
Tab trigger.
Tab triggers. I call it a dingus. It's inertial safety. And you wanted to avoid that because if you've ever...
Exactly. And that was actually part of the initial.
So yeah, part of the design of the 320 specifically was to avoid the trigger safety. And to do all that internally without it, which I feel like that's just a bad idea. And I think Max said something stupid like, it's just really annoying to have a trigger bar safety on it because like you feel it on your finger on a Glock and it's like, ugh. And he's going off on other brands that have that, even though it's like a really simple safety feature and like a good idea to have, but the P320 doesn't. And that was one of their design goals, which might have led to some other problems with the handgun, but we'll get to that. Mac is a dingus. Very true. Very true.
The little dingus that Glock installed is ingenious because it's incredibly simple and incredibly effective. Like I don't, when it comes to safety features, I don't want them to be complex. I don't want them to be complicated. I want them to be as simple as possible and as effective as possible.
When it comes to complex, there is nothing quite like the SIG P320. It is a cacophony of small, eccentric, stupid parts that are nonsensical when you look at it, even from a non-engineering perspective. If you just look at it, you're like, surely there was a more efficient way to do the same thing. And the answer is yes, because almost every other gun manufacturer out there has made the exact same thing, just simpler and allegedly safer.
So they took German engineering and re-engineered it with German engineers to make it even more complex.
Well, was the 250 German designed and then the 320 American designed?
So
I don't know if it was the same team even, right? The point being is that they had a design and they were like, instead of coming up with something new from the ground up, they decided to butcher the 250 into the 320, right? Transition. Lostero says Indian engineers. Very true. Very true.
We wanted to do two things. We wanted to design a striker-fired model that you did not have to pull the trigger to get the gun, and we had very good success, no issues.
So if you guys,
I just thought that was a funny line. He definitely didn't mean to say it that way, but it is very funny.
Did not have to pull the trigger to get the gun, and we had very good success, no issues.
So if you guys have watched other videos going back several years, there were YouTubers out there that were dropping P320s and they were discharging. They're pulling a bullet and just putting a primer in the case.
Right.
And when it dropped, it was going bang. And then you had people whacking with mallets and all sorts of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so that prompted SIG to respond. And that's when we saw the voluntary upgrade, right? Where
we went.
So I see these two situations as essentially the exact same thing. Back in the day, people complained about them not being drop safed, and SIG was forced to respond through public pressure. Now we're saying, hey, even worse, some of the guns seem to be able to go off on their own, and eventually public pressure will mount to a point where SIG has to respond. Currently, their response has been nuh-uh, or actually it's your fault. But eventually, with enough public pressure and with enough evidence, eventually they will be forced to either do another voluntary upgrade program, a redesign, a Gen 3, a Gen 2, whatever they want to call it, because they have a million different versions of the 320 out already. But I see these as very similar situations to the original drop safe issue, where I think the gun was out for 5 years before they did the drop safe upgrade. And in that time, a million plus 320s were out in the wild. But I see these as very similar situations. With enough public pressure, with enough evidence, eventually they will just be forced to do another upgrade, recall, whatever it happens to be.
So my question to this is, why have they been allowed to get away with doing a quote unquote voluntary upgrade to a known safety risk?
I can tell you why. Because at the time, SIG had a impeccable relationship, or impeccable reputation, and a good relationship with its customers and everybody. But over the last decade, that has slowly been eroded on almost all sides, which is why you're seeing now investigations into a lot of their military contracts. You're seeing investigations into a lot of their police contracts. A lot of some of the biggest police unions in the country, the police departments in the country, are dropping the 320 outright. They're being banned from ranges. They're being banned from training classes. Their reputation has gone to the point where in the past we might have given them the benefit of the doubt. We now no longer do that, right? It's like if you heard right now of Glocks going off, you'd probably be like, maybe, I need to see a lot for you to tell me that Glocks were randomly just going off or Glocks were falling apart or something like that. It would have to be a lot of evidence. But fast forward 5 years from now, and if we see a pattern of failures from Glocks, then Glock's reputation would start to fall to the point where we now believe it. We push back. We're more angry as consumers, as customers. So yeah, I think that is just naturally over the course of 10 years since the P320 has been out now, the trust in the pistol and the company as a whole, due to some of their leadership decisions, has been eroded.
So, Lost Arrow, from what I gather, there are no exceptions because it's not the designation, it's the fire control.
There are some things that are different. For instance, there are several issues with the 320. So it is not just the uncommanded discharge. If you remember, for a while, the barrels were blowing up because they were not fully supported. There was issues with them not going fully into battery. So they changed the weight of the slides. They changed the recoil springs. They changed the way the barrels are made to stop that specific issue. So that issue, in theory, is mostly fixed if you buy a brand new one. So, but the uncommanded discharge issue, they've tried to fix it, right? Because they upgraded a secondary sear catch, and they've was that the only other thing that they did to solve that? I think that's really the only other thing that they've done to try and solve that specific issue, is to add the secondary sear catch on the sear itself. So there's like two sears almost, one primary and one emergency, I guess, that really should never be touched unless there is another failure, which is kind of concerning in and of itself. So there are still issues with all of them, although some of the issues have been fixed. So it kind of depends what issue you're specifically talking about, which I think for most people at this point is the uncommanded discharge.
See, because what I find strange is that the military would even accept something that doesn't have a safety and then 3 redundancies past that safety, because that's usually for all contractors and stuff, at least on the ones that I've worked for, that's almost a guaranteed, is to have that triple redundancy.
Right. So it is strange that they claimed that it was never a problem and then made 2 specific changes to remedy that problem and 2 more redundancies to fix the problem that wasn't there in the first place. Yeah. So that is strange.
Wow.
We jumped through a lot of hoops, and we were able to make this a reality in a very short amount of time, just to make sure that we could survive.
So
when you hear them talk about this, it's like, yeah, we had to update our guns on the fly after customer feedback that they were going off on their own. Or in this case, they're again referencing the drop safe issue. But It's never a good sign. And I just love the language used. It's like, to survive, we had to fix these guns so that they would stop going off. And in regards to an older issue, but now we have this new issue. So it's just funny.
One question I have just for the audience, the striker on the pistol, on the P320, is it fully cocked when it's being carried loaded, or is it semi-cocked and when you pull the trigger, it draws the striker back to its complete rearward position and release it?
No, it's not fully cocked, but it's a significant percentage cocked as it's engaged with the sear.
So if you're not familiar with how it works, there's a sear engagement surface on the actual frame itself in the fire control unit, and then on the striker assembly. And so the way that it works is, I'll just make myself big here.
That's what I was just about to say.
As you pull the trigger, you push back a little bit, and then it goes forward, right? And then as soon as it slips off, you get that break, then it goes forward. So that striker is like 95% cocked at all times if there's a round in the chamber. So it's not 100%. It's not fully cocked, but it is 90 to 95% cocked at all times, which is more than enough to ignite all primers, versus other guns where they have like a Glock is not a fully cocked striker. Most handguns, or I shouldn't say most, but a lot of the major designs are not fully cocked strikers. So in that trigger pull, you are actually cocking the striker itself. And it is never in a position to go off until that trigger is fully depressed, basically, right? Whereas the P320, that striker is in a position to ignite a primer, send a bullet down the barrel at any given point in time.
And with it being to that extent, the problem then becomes the engagement surfaces have a much shorter distance to travel, which means the geometry themselves and the interface needs to be that much more precise, because it's not like you have that margin of error on the travel itself.
Right, which is when we get into some of the sear engagement issues that you can have just by either at the factory, a SIG employee assembles it incorrectly, or you order an incorrect part, or at any point, anyone puts in a incorrect takedown safety on it. You can get like almost no sear engagement whatsoever. And then you combine that with a striker safety, which again has all sorts of other issues in there, which we don't necessarily need to get into in this video. You are asking for a gun to go off at a random point in time, and it just happens, right? So I have already ordered the parts for my specific P320 to attempt to recreate the issues, and I'm sure other people have as well since this information has come to light. And again, I think that it is only a matter of time, the next couple weeks, the next couple months, before somebody has it going off on camera at will in a controlled environment. Okay, good to know, Trench. I am glad to know that you were out there digging the tunnels.
The striker, when the striker's engaged with the sear, it's pulled back. So the sear is, when the sear moves to the rear, it's moving it back slightly just because of the engagement angle surface. Okay. But once that striker's charged and the gun's charged and ready to go, the striker is in a rearward position. So it needs obviously it still needs the trigger to move the sear to the rear to release it. But there's a slight move back just because of the angle of the sear and the striker face.
So the next question I would have is, the U.S. Army obviously adopted the M17, beat out several other competitors to win the contract. And of course, they had their own series of testing and things like that. So once those M17s went into circulation, I was one of the people that when the Army turned them into SIG, I don't know the backstory there, and that's what I'm going to ask about. They turned those guns into SIG, and then you gave new pistols to the Army. I bought one of those because I'm a collector, right? And I noticed when I opened up my P320, or I'm sorry, my M17, and I looked inside, there was an additional cut inside of the slide that was through the finish that the Army, or maybe you guys had done for the Army. So
basically, he's just talking about the quick update program that happened between the M17 and M18 and some of the changes that they had to do to make it more reliable. He says that there were no internal geometry changes, but I only had this in here because I wanted to talk about the alleged cost that the SIG won the contract with, which again, according to a Marine Corps 2019 budget, listed the MHS unit cost at $180 per pistol. So if you're ever wondering why they won all of these contracts, it is undercutting. They said, how cheap can we make this thing? And SIG said, yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Weren't they selling it to other countries for like $1,000 a
Correct.
pistol,
Yes. Well, that's the thing.
$1,200
That's
a
the thing.
pistol.
If you win the U.S. military contract, that is
Everybody
not only,
else wants
who
your
cares
stuff.
about the money for that? That is a huge amount of prestige. That is a big dollar amount, which you might even sell at a loss, be a loss leader. But now every retard like Mac who wants to collect, they go out and buy an M17. They go out and they buy an M18 at $800, $900, $1,000, whatever it happens to be for these pistols. Then you import 38,000 pistols into a war zone like Ron Cohen did. You get arrested for that, but you made a crap ton of profit in the meantime, right?
Yeah, you can afford to pay the fine to stay out of jail.
Correct.
And then
with
go
a
on to
suspended
do
sentence.
this again.
So, yeah, allegedly, they basically said, well, we will charge you nothing for the handguns if you give us this contract. And again, winning the pistol contract helped set up SIG to win the $5 billion of the NGSW, which is the XM7, XM250, MG338, and ammunition and suppressor contract for the NGSW program. So, in terms of money, they got some money.
My question would be, why did the Army swap out their M17s? And the reason it might be a point of contention is simply because if I recall correctly, that all happened about the same time the videos were circulating of people hammer firing, mallet firing.
The timing was impeccable, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah, the timing was very impeccable, just like the videos we released today, Tim. The timing was impeccable about all of this stuff. And that's kind of how they're trying to sweep it under the rug. It's like, well, at the same time we were doing upgrades for the military, people were going off about these drop test thingamajigs happening over here. It was just bad timing, guys, okay? It's just bad timing. It's like we win a new program over here for the NGSW program, and then our handguns start going off on their own. It's just bad timing, guys, okay? It's not because our quality control is garbage and half of our parts come from India. It's just bad timing, guys. Bad optics, okay? Bad optics. I have the best optics.
They do. They taste really good, too, the batteries. They have really good optics.
All right. Confirmed. Richard likes the taste of uncommanded discharges. Trench says, ha, ha, ha. It's so funny to have an uncommanded discharge. Ha, 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 ha. I think he's either drunk or joking, but I hope you're having a great night tonight. You sound like it. Hope you're doing well. Premature discharge, another word for it.
Fed into everything. I had questions.
Yeah, it was purely coincidental timing. The coming.
Purely coincidental. Purely coincidental.
Couldn't have been much worse, but it had nothing to do with mechanics or safety or anything. It was just
I'm no body language expert, but every time Phil talks, it's a little defeatist. His shoulders are down. He's just like, I don't know, it's just bad timing, guys. It's just bad. It's like, well, sorry, sir. We still have 30 more minutes of interview to get through.
Fed into everything. I had questions.
Yeah, it was purely coincidental timing. The timing couldn't have been much worse, but it had nothing to do with mechanics or safety or anything. It was literally a finish change, and we were able to make the guns be more reliable with their type of ammo.
Okay, so my next question will lead into what's currently being discussed right now on the internet, and that is the P320 claims being that the gun fires uncommanded. And for folks that don't know what that means, it means without physically pulling the trigger.
Right.
We've seen posts, we've seen videos out there where guns have been claimed to have fired themselves in holsters. I think some of those were in law enforcement circles. One I remember watching.
There are lots of them. They're actually going to go through one, but before we get into that, you guys are being absolutely psycho tonight. 6 Hour for 199 says, yes, Trench, they'll drop soon. Probably. Basketball emoji. Are you talking about basketballs or 320s here? Thank you, Sig, for the 199. Dr. Fuzzy One for 499 says, I won't lie. Mac endorsing PSA back in the day turned me into a PSA fanboy for quite a while. I have since repented of my ways. Well, you are welcomed back into the fold for your apostasy. All is forgiven. Thank you very much, Dr. Fuzzy, for 499. So no, and that's the thing. Like back in the day, when you see these people make videos and you don't know better, or you don't fully understand what they're saying, and they seem so positive and they seem so hyped, and then you go out and you spend your own hard-earned money. That's why I try to take it fairly seriously, and a recommendation from me should come with some weight. So it shouldn't just be something I hand out for every product that comes across my desk because they offered me an affiliate code for it, right? Which is why I don't even do that stuff. Mitchell Black for 189 says Tranch dressing is a lol cow. He is not a lol cow. Yeah. He's a provocateur. Okay. He's gaming the system. He's as Sig would say, he's an engagement hacking grifter. Okay. As we all are. A professor for $10 says, I work for a company that operates many indoor ranges, and SIG products give us the most problems by far. Yeah, that does not surprise me. There are many shelves full of used 320s at our local gun stores here in South Dakota.
So I could probably try and talk to one of the guys that runs my local rental range. It's owned and operated by some former SEAL guys, and I think one or two of them might still have contacts. So I could probably get them on to talk about their experiences and what their buddies are going through right now, if that's something that you guys might be interested in.
We might try and take a look at that. Let me see here. While we're talking about this, because remember, guys, it's never happened on camera. It's the holster's fault. Don't worry about it, bro. Trust me, or something. I'll just leave this up here for just a second. It's quite funny. An axe to grind for 199 says, old heads remember when Tim went to Israel. I do remember him kvetching about something or other after he did his whole SVD thing. Axiom for $5 says, I believe this is a coordinated effort between SLG and North American Rescue to sell more Gen 7 cats. Also, why is the video quality dog water? Thanks, Jerry. It is dog water because for some reason it was like too long of a video to download the way I normally do it, so it had to be downloaded in 360p. So, yeah, the video quality is very bad. But you can watch the full interview on Mac's channel for 55 minutes of pure cringe. End quote. Navy Man 8903 for $5 says, blaming Safariland, who is the only authorized military holster, is insane. SIG gaslighting is top tier. We are about to get into that, sir. Thank you for the $5. Yeah, it's the most trusted holster in America. Actually, it's the problem. So we blame you. Huge Ass for 189 says, how many kosher hand jobs did Mac have to give? That number,
loving that Iron Dome.
It's a big number. The biggest of numbers. Some would say too high to count. Thank you, Huge Ass. Totten Dogs for $2 says, Mac running interference, but trench burn downs are gay. No, burn downs aren't gay. If you just want to see a gun get up to a high round count, you always run into the issue of single examples, your sample size of one, so, but it's still a worthwhile test, something people like to see. ET for $4.99 says, I have a factory contract M17 barrel that is out of spec. I would be happy to donate to your research. I'll drop an email from your website. Yeah, go ahead. I would be happy to take a look at all of your bad out of spec parts. Show me.
Rip.
Oops, I accidentally dropped out there for a second. I had an ND on my mouse and accidentally hit the back button. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. I could run the show.
Yeah, you got it. No problem. Sorry about that, gentlemen. What was I talking about?
You were saying something about show me your...
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I show me your out of spec P320 parts. I really want to see them or something like that. Sig Sauer for 199 says, you know what else isn't fully cocked? Trench. Very true. Huge Ass for 499 says, maybe SIG shouldn't have used the dumbest way possible to cram a striker into a hammerfire setup. That is one option. However, they needed a pistol they already had, basically, and already had the feature that they needed for the program, being the interchangeable FCU, or the interchangeable grip modules. So they went with the cheapest solution, and there is nothing more expensive than a cheap solution. John 7M7 for 199 says, nothing screams honesty more than a chat with Mac. Yeah. That should be the name of their podcast, A Chat with Mac. Todd and Docs for $2 says, SIG has NWGR employees that ruin everything. I don't know about that. I think it's more of the Indian variety. Very sorry about that. John Smith Report 99 says, I don't understand how they are simultaneously oblivious to it happening with their guns, but they somehow know it happens with every other gun. Yeah, at one point in the video, they show a Glock being able to be pulled, being able to the trigger being able to be actuated inside of a holster, but they use the Glock instead of the 320. Just that they have there on the table. They specifically only show the Glock doing that, which I thought was funny. Vintage Welfare. Vintage Welfare. That's he got me. I thought that was the real VW. Vintage Welfare for $10 says, Trench Grenade, call me Haas. I love you. If you don't like the video, you are gay. Greetings and salutations, Jerkmate. It is I, Carl Caxarda of the Non-Relevant Range TV. Actually, that's a good intro. I'm going to send that to him. I'm going to send that to him and let him use that for an intro. Mitchell Black for $4.99 says, not me spreading disinformation about SIG so the price goes down and I can pick up an X10 comp. That's actually quite funny, yeah. Jay Sprex for $2 says, would you rather appendix carry a SIG 320 or a PSA? The Gen 3 PSA clone, the Dagger, I would rather carry that, for sure. Which one do I trust more? That's a good question. Steven for $2 says, assassinated by 6 Hour. Yeah, that was a bad time to hit the wrong button there. Mitchell Black 499 says, thought SIG sent one of those Mossad boys. Yeah, their lawyers are going to do their work first before they do anything more aggressive, before they Boeing me. Chuck for $2 says, had Glock 1 contract, would SIG still be gay? Well, they would have sold like half as many pistols, so ironically, they would have half as many issues. Vintage Welfare, my beloved. Okay, so the VW and VW are in the chat right now. Very funny. All right, let's get back to this because it's going to take some time. It's still going on in the background to be some stupid.
I believe there's an officer doing something in a building. He's kind of bent over in the gun box.
Montville PD, yes.
Okay, so I've seen that. I'm sure many of the people watching this video have seen that. What was going on with that? And the result of that is that there are lawsuits out there. People are talking.
Why would they only show that portion and not show the gun actually going off?
So that's another issue which I thought was kind of funny because not only do they not show the actual incident, but they only show one of the camera angles, which I thought was quite interesting. So here's the full video for context, which we have. This is the gentleman that's about to have his gun go off. Oh, it kind of cut there. Or it's just low quality.
Let's see.
But there you can see it a little bit better. And so they are going to have an explanation for it going off that involves keys in the holster. So we'll go ahead and let that there and keep that for later reference.
The nature of the lawsuits, I presume, are related to uncommanded firing, or
That's what a lot of the lawsuits are based on is the fact that uncommanded firing caused either the gun to fire or caused an injury. So that's what a lot of the claims are, yes. So this is the question everyone's been asking is, first I can stand here and tell you that the guns cannot fire without a trigger pull. And the reason
Except in the court cases where you lost. Except in those instances, to be clear.
I'm able to say that is because we, along with a number of major...
The reason I'm able to say that is because we investigated it and we're good. We're the best.
Police departments and agencies, and as it turns out, a lot of these attorneys and their companies who are attacking the firearm and attacking us, their experts have all come to the same conclusion that they cannot replicate any of these events. And it's funny.
See, that's such a misconstruction. That's borderline an outright lie, because again, the SIG engineers or the SIG lawyers at some point have had to admit different things about different parts within the actual court documents. If you want to go through those in detail, Protraband has some great videos on all of that stuff that's 2, 3, 4 hours long. So there is lots of information out there. There is lots of contention by both sides, lawyers on both sides. SIG has won some cases. SIG has lost some cases. So when he says that nobody's ever been able to, or we all agree that the gun can't go off, that is a lie. That is a lie. That is incorrect.
Funny we mentioned replicate as in they can't make the gun fire unless the trigger is pulled. To your point, there are some videos out there, many of which you can't see a lot. This is probably the best.
I believe that they are referencing the AHT video, the Achilles Heels tactical video. And I have been talking to one of the students that was there at the class next to the gentleman who had his P320 go off. I did ask him if he could actually make the show tonight. So let me see if he actually responded and I'm just a retard. He has not responded yet, but yeah, so I was talking to a gentleman who was there at that class when the SIG went off. They claim in this video at one point that the guy had his finger still in the trigger, which is wild because there is no confirmation of that, but they just claim it. And any claim made without evidence can be ignored without evidence. So, but I do have an eyewitness that was there next to him. And I will at some point either be having just a regular chat with him and then upload it as a video, or have him on a stream so that people can ask him questions about that specific incident. I can actually read his statement on it if you want real fast, because he did tell me that, again, he's an eyewitness. He was at the class. He was there that day. He's in the videos there. So that's all confirmed. Let me see.
Was this the gentleman in the blue shirt?
No, it's not the blue shirt guy. He was actually right next to the guy.
Yeah, because we also had another one reach out in the comment section. I think I sent you the thing. I reached out to him. I told him to get in contact with us. So I'm waiting to see if we get any response from him as well. And another gentleman responded saying that he was one of the ones who actually caught around to the leg and is one of the people who is currently in the middle of the lawsuit.
Correct.
Now, I'm not sure what he'll be able to say, but I did reach out to him as well and say, hey, we would love to have you on, tell your story, whatever you can say, or even if you just want to talk privately off the record.
Right. Yeah. So again, he claims that the guy was holstered when the gun went off. So, I mean, and we've seen it. We literally have videos of it going off in holsters. So to say that it's never happened, I think it's just pure cope. It's like, don't believe your lying eyes.
Especially the most recent one posted by Prochabrand, because the two guys were riding around in a golf cart. Right?
Well, no, see, that's the thing. Anytime you see them get out of a car, it's a seatbelt got in there, or it bumped the steering wheel and got it to go off.
But these dudes were seated and not moving. Not getting in or out of the golf cart, and it went off in right into his cup and into the poor golf cart.
Footage that we've seen with regards to clarity and to be able to see exactly what we think happened with the Montville PD case. Just like so, I'll do one more clear and check just so we don't get beat up on the internet, but clear and safe.
Oh, that's going to happen anyway.
Safe. I know. Trust me.
At least they're self-aware enough to recognize what this video entails. And the comments on Mac's video are very funny.
Oh,
This is great. So we're going to put the gun in a holster. You can see it locks in. It's perfectly set up for this type of holster. Now, what you will notice is the gap between the body of the trigger or body of the holster and the side of the trigger guard. In the case of, let's say, things on officers' belts or seat belts or that kind of thing, or keys, for a key to find its way in there and to pull the trigger is, it's not impossible, right? It can happen. But just by keep pulling in, pulling up, and it's fun.
So I have a Safariland holster for a light, right? Big old hole in there. And I have a Glock.
Wait, sorry. Shit.
No. You just hit the wrong button. Yeah, you got to click the button. You just click it on the actual layout itself.
Oh.
So I have a Safariland light-bearing holster right here, right there. And I have a Glock 17 that fits inside of it. Now, is it possible to actuate the trigger by sticking something inside of the holster? Yes, but you basically need to do it intentionally. So when he shows you, like, hey, listen, guys, let me make me small again. He's like, listen, guys, I can stick something in there and get the trigger to go off. See, look how easy that is. It's like, kind of, but you're intentionally doing that. It is not something that just regularly happens. So his claim in this video that we watched a little earlier, this one right here, is that the keys of this officer, can I go frame by frame? I can. Excellent. So the keys on this gentleman's belt right here set off the gun. So he's standing, close to him, but there's half a foot of distance between them. But as he stands up, the keys on this guy's belt are stuck inside of this guy's holster and get the gun to go off. Look how far away they are. I'm just going to say no.
The other angle shows it better.
Well, but even this, like, look at the separation between the guys. You're telling me that a guy's short set of keys that are like this long, right? That's how long it is, are somehow 6 inches away actuating a trigger inside. They just perfectly got inside of his holster to set it off. That is what the claim is.
I would.
That is what the claim is.
Short. Those look like average size keys to me.
Average. Some would say above average. But so this is the closer angle. So again, we can go frame by frame. So again, they are alleging that his holster here, the keys from this guy's belt up here, actuate this trigger down here. Look how far away he is. And there it goes off. So somehow between here and here, it actuates the gun.
His hand is on the guy's side, basically.
Well, remember, the pistol's like down here at this point. So it would have to be
way down.
It's a stretch. It's a stretch. Like Mac after accepting his SIG paycheck.
Ooh.
Ooh. And Angel Band played those keys. True. Yeah. So that's the argument, is it was keys, guys. Because again, because you can stick something inside of the trigger guard and get a Glock to go off, therefore the SIG P320 has never had an issue. Ta-da! It was the holster's fault. Don't you understand?
Funny if you watch the video.
It just it went click, folks.
We'll see. By the way, I want to go on record. I'm not saying that's what happened, but we'll say.
Because he can't say. He has to be very clear. I'm not saying that's what happened, but I'm going to put out this theory to cover ourselves a little bit. You know, I'm just going to say that this could have happened. It's a possibility. I'm not saying that is what happened, because I don't think I'm legally allowed to allege that, but you know, it's a possibility.
After looking at the video, slowing it down, and seeing exactly what we saw, which in this case for the Montville PD is, we know.
Again, so he is claiming that this guy's keys right here got into this guy's holster and set it off. That is the claim. That these keys set off this holster.
That on the front of every officer's belt, they had their keys, or keys hanging off the front of their belt keepers, which in their defense, I also did the same thing. I carried my keys in the front for my cruiser when I was a police officer, because we had belt keepers. That's kind of what we used them for. And in the case of the Montville PD, they had either a 6300 series holster or maybe even a 7300 series holster. And this is a slightly newer version. Again, this is clear and safe.
So Stephen, he for $10 says, how much force does it take for a set of keys to jam itself inside of the trigger guard and pull the trigger? What's the likelihood of that happening with a loose set of keys? I can make it happen because, again, I have a Safariland holster. I have a Glock, allegedly. So, in fact, even I can probably get it for you. I can probably do it for you right now. But I have to really just relax. I'm just gonna take some pictures because it's totally off camera. So I'm totally not doing it.
You're just gonna.
But
you cleared it, right?
Of course. Yeah, it's been cleared for hours, and I just did it right there. Relax. So if I do it, you have to pull. It's very easy to do, as you can tell. But I have gotten it to do it before. So, yeah, so you can get it to go, but you have to be incredibly specific. So the odds that it happened right there, perfectly inside of the guy's holster that was 6 inches away, I find uncredible. I rate that theory uncredible.
No, you did that with a Glock.
I did that with a Glock, which is also what he's showing there. Remember, in this video, the SIG guy takes a Glock 17 or whatever, it's a contract gun, and he puts it in a Safariland holster. Very intentionally, he does not show the SIG doing it. For this demonstration specifically, he shows a Glock doing it.
Okay. Do we have any other instances of it happening with a Glock, like in the real world?
Again, this is just a wild theory that is asserted to cover SIG. So I don't find it credible. I don't find it all that interesting. Is it theoretically possible? Yes. Do I think it is likely? No.
Yeah, just wondering.
Yeah.
Clear and safe, no magazine inserted, and this is a newer version of said holster. And again, this doesn't close. It's made for a different optic, but you get the idea. It's locked in. It can't go anywhere. But this one, you can actually see it's slightly better. You know, the gap's still there.
Yeah.
But you know, and to get a finger in there, you'd have to have.
You have to fit
You
the
could
plastic
probably do it if you pushed hard enough. But when the officer was bending over to pick up the person's feet, you notice as he stands up, if you notice and slow the video down, he actually bumps into the officer to his right, who is holding the suspect's arm, suspect's left arm. He actually bumps into him on the way up with his holster, up with his body, and the key on the.
So again, that is the only angle that they show, but we do have the other angle, which is much less convincing. Because that's from here, we have one frame until it goes off right there. So from here to there, again, the gun is like right here. So the gun is like 6 inches below this guy's belt at this point. And then that's when it goes off. Is it theoretically possible? Again, yes. Realistic? I don't think so. That's my opinion. Don't sue me for that one, Sig.
The officer to his right, his key was up here on the left side. And if you notice them bump in, what I think happened, or what would make sense for a trigger.
That's actually, I have to go back, because that's to get it to go off in this frame. What has to happen with your set of keys, whatever they may be, you actually have to be pulling apart basically straight. So on the lanyard, the key has to the key has to be pressed up against the trigger here, and then you actually have to pull away basically like this. So it can't just be next to or straight above. That doesn't work. It has to be separated at like a 90-degree angle, or trying to pull apart this way laterally. That's the only way that you can get it to go off.
Bump in.
That is not what's happening here. He is up and down, straight up and down. If they were walking sideways, separating like that, maybe it would be more likely, but that's just not what you see here. You see him going up and down.
I think happened, and what would make sense for a trigger activation in the holster, is when he was bending over, the key of that officer went into the holster, and as he stood up with the gun, the key twisted into it, and as he stood up and made the gun fire. It's not a gun problem. I can do it with the Glock. I can do it with ours. I can do it with any pistol with a tab trigger or without a tab trigger. But there is a relationship between a gun with a flashlight attached to the frame, that there is a relationship between that firearm and a holster that creates a gap. And if you have that gap, whether it be a 6300 or 7300, there has to be care taken in the equipment you're carrying, how you're carrying it. It doesn't matter. Guns don't matter. What matters is the system.
So again, that is in his own words, it is not the gun. It is never the gun. It is the holster, and specifically the light-bearing holster, except for the other video where it wasn't a light-bearing holster, except for Gungas Khan's video when it wasn't a light-bearing holster, except for the P320 at AHT, which we don't even know if down there is a light-bearing holster yet. So it's only a light-bearing holster unless it's not. Right? Congratulations. Yeah. Asian massage use the system. Yes, it's all about the system.
Look at the bigger picture. We look at what was a person right-handed, left-handed? Were they drawing the gun? Were they in the process of drawing the gun? Were they in a suitable holster? There's so many elements that you never hear about. All you hear is my 320 went off and injured me, or my 320 went off in the holster. And we can't show any more clear of a picture of what we think could happen if it went off in the holster. If a gun goes off in the holster, it can be possible with certain types of setups, certain types of holsters, certain type of lights. And so for us, it's more important to see the big picture instead of just saying the gun goes off when the trigger's not pulled. No, it doesn't. We've tried everything we know how to do. I mean, we have done everything. The experts have done everything. Our detractors experts have done everything to make these fire uncommanded. And so far, no one can do it. And we produced 3.
So this is the one feather in their cap. The last thing that they can hold on to is that nobody has yet, very important, been able to recreate it in a controlled environment. But that is what people are actually actively working on now, myself and others included. So as soon as that does happen, which again, I would give it a week or two, at most before somebody is able to recreate the issue. As soon as that happens, SIG has literally no defense. They have no other cards to play. They have nothing, nowhere else to run. It's, hey, guess what? Your guns are improperly designed, put together, improperly labeled, whatever it happens to be. So that is the one feather in their cap that they have as of right now, which is why this interview is probably going to age like milk.
Over 3 million of these things.
And in your testing, either of firearms from people that have claimed that they're P320 fired uncommanded, or just in your testing in general, have you ever been able to make a 320 fire without pulling the trigger?
Absolutely not. No.
And this
is an area where I don't know. I don't want to say that this guy's absolutely lying about that, but when a company receives a product back from, an incident, like with Genghis Khan, right? When he sent his gun into SIG and SIG was like, oh yeah, no issues with it. Sorry, bro. And they're like, well, it definitely went off. Like, people saw it go off. It nearly shot me. So it definitely did go off. But SIG can just lie and be like, not a real problem. And then they can make a stealth change to the gun. They can update it. They can, issue a upgrade protocol, or they can make stealth changes to the parts, which is another big issue with the 320, is that over the years, there's been a number of silent revisions to the way that parts are made, to their QC processes. For instance, in the video that I put out this morning, they went from a 1 in every 10 pistol QC check to a 1 in 1 QC check. So every single gun gets visually inspected by one of their QC guys for these specific issues. So they are, again, due to public pressure, responding to these claims and making sure that all of these things are actually properly assembled from the factory, which they may or may not have. So anytime you send a gun or an item back to the manufacturer, usually what they're going to tell you is, well, actually it was fine, or hey, we weren't able to diagnose the problem, or it was actually this thing, but we fixed it, right? And you have no idea, no way to verify that, which is why I recommend, if you have a real issue with a product, do not send it back to the company whatsoever. You should send it to a third party and have them inspect it, recreate it, and do all that stuff with it. That way there you actually have a public log, rather than it just disappearing into the ether once SIG gets their hands on it.
This includes firearms that were sent to you after a presumed accident and everything like that.
Yeah.
You were unable to replicate.
We cannot replicate it in any circumstances. And in fact, when we hear arguments of tolerance stacks and this kind of thing, and this was off and this was off and this wasn't right, this must have been broken. In those cases, what I would challenge folks to say is, if there's something wrong mechanically, internally with the gun, if there's some spec that's off, then that should actually be easier to replicate. If there's something mechanically wrong, why can't I replicate it? If you think this part's broken, let's break your part for you, and then we see if we can replicate it. We can't find a situation where.
See, a lot of that is just gaslighting. For instance, here's a new 365, which is why I say that the 365 also has issues, where the sear is just, it's falling apart out of the box. This is the finest quality Indomim that you can buy. So I don't know if this part specifically is MIMmed, but again, when they tell you that we aren't able to figure out these issues, we've never seen a parts failure, we can't recreate it. It's like, well, here's just, people post pictures of these. There are hundreds of these floating around of, missing striker safeties, bent striker safeties, the spring breaks, like I showed also on the other 365 earlier in the stream. The striker reset spring that turns your gun into an open bolt is either improper breaks or is a tiny little thing that you have to spend $30 to replace. There are so many little parts that break on these things, and there are pictures of this all over the internet. To say that they're not able to recreate any of these issues and break the parts and see what happens, I just think is patently false.
We can replicate a gun going off without trigger pull, especially at 320.
But people would say, why is the P320 being singled out and we're not hearing about blocks firing uncommanded?
I think I can answer that. 320s have. I can tell you that, but you know as well as I do, no one had heard of Beretta 92 until the M9 contract was won. I mean, then you saw them everywhere, and the P320's popularity grew because of the M17 and M18 wins, and more police departments were finding that their officers shot better with our guns because the grip angle and the trigger was better, and it was just a better, more accurate, inherently better accurate gun to shoot. It's just a math fact that the more guns.
So again, if we're talking numbers, I think SIG did outsell Glock over the last. There was a couple years where they did. I couldn't tell you about the last few, but they're very close. And I would actually argue that there's many, many, many more Glocks floating around, especially in police hands, than there is SIG P320s. Even though SIG has sold extremely well over the last few years, I still think that the Glock has more units out there in the market than the P320. And I think that we see far less of these issues in the modern times with Glock than we do with the P320. So whatever percentages it is, however low it is, that's pretty irrelevant because, again, we see it at an alarmingly higher rate than other guns. That's the problem.
Guns you put out there, more guns you put in people's hands, there's the chances of negligent gun handling or holster intrusions, incidents, that kind of thing, they're going to go up.
So again, it is your fault. It is always your fault. Listen, you put more guns in more people's hands and more people do stupid things. What can I tell you, son? Which there is some truth to that, of course. The more items you have out there, the more times that stupid people are going to do stupid things, right? That is just a fact. But again, to say that patently all issues, it's never the gun, it's always the equipment, it's always the shooter. All right, bro.
And you know, it was inevitable. It's just people are going to mishandle their firearms, or things are going to happen, get into holsters, and as you put more out there, it's just mathematics. It's just going to happen at some point, and I think that's why you're seeing it more with 320. Plus, let's face it, the 320 is very popular, and it's easier to kind of place blame on a system than it is to place blame on gun handling. Of the 14 or so.
Well, I think because it's popular, we're seeing more issues with it, which is, again, double-edged sword. Being popular is great, but if your gun has problems, well, it's going to put more of a spotlight on those problems.
Negligent discharges that I helped investigate with the other platforms that we were carrying, it was always blaming the gun. And we did the same exact test with those systems, and we always found out that it was just the gun handling. It was a gun handling thing.
How many P320s have you produced, guesstimate?
Guess it'd be over 3.5 million.
Over 3 million of them are in circulation.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's a lot of handguns. Another question I have.
Yeah, so that's the number. They quote about 3.5 million P320s out in existence, and I believe that is in totality. Subarctic Psycho, for a member for 1 month, says only 50 characters for this? Cheap bastard. I don't know if I can change that. I would let you guys type as much as you want, but I think that's just a YouTube thing. But thank you for the month of membership, sir. Appreciate it. Fresh Pinochet for $5 says it's a Mac attack from the back. Nothing sexual, just fluffing prices on his GB gunbroker listings while sugging off a brand. True. Chuck for $2 says NASA solved the Challenger explosion in 32 months. SIG. Well, SIG would say pilot error. That is actually quite funny. SIG would say pilot error in that case. Mitchell Black for $4.99 just bought Lego Star Wars The Razor Crest set 75-331 and plan to build it later this weekend. God is good. Hey, that sounds like a good time. Modern Star Wars is not my thing, but I'm glad you enjoyed it, and I hope you have fun building that. Stephen for $10 says, how much force? Oh, I think I did respond to this, but yes, it does take a lot. What is the likelihood of that happening with a loose set of keys? Very low. You have to basically set it up for it to do it. Is it theoretically possible? Yes. Is it likely? No. Central Science Defense for $5 says, a decade of LE experience, and my Glock or M&P has never gone off from keys on my belt. Fun fact. Well, I've never heard of that ever until SIG postured that as a defense for their P320 going off inside of a holster. So I had never heard of that before. So that was a new one. Fresh Pinochet for $2 says, in the business, we call that BS excuse reaching. Yes. That is a reach for sure. Rick for $5 says, I have been a PO for 8 years and have never seen keys or anything get into someone's holster. Laughing emoji. Again, apparently that's new to you guys as well, because I had never heard of that before. I've heard of shirts getting in there and fingers getting in there and stuff like that, but specifically keys, I don't think I've ever heard of that before. Todd and Dogs for $2 says, notice how Glock doesn't have to do this crap? Correct. The correct response is to apologize or say nothing. Subarctic Psycho for $2 says my Glock 17 at Gen 5 is named Gaston's Revenge. That's true. I I did see somebody comment earlier that the ghost of Gaston was going around and pulling triggers of the 320 to boost sales. I thought that was quite funny. Gabriel Baker for $4.99 says I lost respect for Mac when he said a 308 Spear was his personal GPR of choice, and that the gun was so good it made him abandon 5.56. You can get dumb responses from Mac at times. He's had some very strange takes and some scummy behavior.
He's still running defense for the 8 cage and saying retarded things like, oh well, I live over an hour from Copper Customs and I don't have any other affiliation to the other businesses that are in that same plaza and that same address. And I had to respond with, Tim, I live over 12 hours away and I found it with a simple Google search.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the guy actually just messaged me back, the AHT student, and he's actually working currently, but we are going to have him on at some point in the future for sure. Mitchell Black for 199 says 6 million P320s? Questioning emoji. That number seems high, right? I don't even know if you look at the factories and the amount that they were able to produce and it just seems high, right? Seems unlikely. Thank you, Mitchell Black, for the 199. Fresh Peanut Shave for $5 says P320. Stop giving me your toughest battles. Cop, it's literally a set of keys. Just don't go off. That's a good meme. That's a good meme. Somebody should make that right now.
Regarding sear engagement. Okay, so we talked about earlier about the striker's mostly cocked. So presumably if you didn't have a secondary catch, and if it were theoretically possible for the striker to move forward uncommanded, it has enough energy to ignite the primer. Mm-hmm. So the question I would have then is, with sear engagement, have you guys looked into the possibility that because of the holster firing, that means the guns are being carried a lot in a police cruiser or something like that, it's being bounced around a lot? Is there any possibility in your testing or in your design engineering, circles, is there any possibility that the sear is just slowly walking off and then something finally just slips and boom?
No.
Because you have that secondary catch?
Well, we have the secondary catch. We obviously have the spring tension.
Sorry, carried a lot in a police cruiser or something like that, it's being bounced around a lot.
I need somebody to make a GIF of Mac bouncing up and down there, just for reasons. For reasons we'll talk about later. I think that'd be quite funny.
That means the guns are being carried a lot in a police cruiser or something like that. It's being bounced around a lot. Is there any possibility in your testing or in your design engineering, circles, is there any possibility that the sear is just slowly walking off and then something finally just slips and boom?
No.
Because you have that secondary catch?
Well, we have the secondary catch. We obviously have the spring tension keeping the sear upright, but honestly, the pressure from the sear is enough to actually keep the pressure from the striker is enough to keep the sear in place even without the springs. But the springs keep the sear pushed up. Obviously, the striker itself can't move until the captive safety lever is up. There's just so many redundant systems that must rely on 4 to 5 pounds of trigger to move to the rear.
Yeah, I want more information. I want to find out, because I'm not an engineer. I'm a trigger puller, not a trigger designer, I like to say. Mm-hmm. And so, the questions that I'm asking are questions I've seen posted, online, the questions that I might have. Now, another handgun that is very popular, handgun I personally carry, is the P365.
Again, every time that he talks, he's just glazing SIG, which I always find quite funny. This is actually, somebody just posted this in the Discord, so thank you very much. This is a report of a SIG P320 going off in a holster in 2023. That holster in question was actually a Blackhawk holster, which is quite funny. So on February 2023 at approximately 1:05, service member 1, Army soldier and injured police officer, was in the supervisor's office conducting administrative duties at the blah, 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 blah. Can we get to the actual? OFC1 stood up to grab his food out of the office refrigerator, which is at the far end of the room. As he walked through a narrow space and attempted to pass SM1, OFC's holster made contact with SM1's holster, causing a round to inadvertently discharge from SM1's firearm and striking him on the top of his right foot where it meets his ankle. Oh my gosh. Oh, that is rough, bro. So yeah, the idea that they never go off, or the sear contact is perfect, it can never slip, I just don't buy it. And bro, that has got to be one of the, in your ankle, like right where your ankle meets your foot. That is not a place I would like to get shot. That is painful. Thank you for that. I appreciate you. All right.
But I know that there's differences design-wise.
There are some differences.
Now, were there any changes to the trigger mechanism in the P325, the P365? And the reason I'm bringing this up is because it's another very popular SIG product. We hear about these, claimed uncommanded firings of the P320, but to my knowledge, I've never heard of anything for the P365.
Listen, I don't want to speak for the number of owners out there, and obviously I don't have visibility of every single claim that's made with or without the P365 or any of our products, but I honestly don't know. It's certainly, if it's happening, it's not as prevalent as the P320. In those situations, I carry a 365.
So he didn't mean to admit that the 320 goes off, but he says that these situations are, there's less common than we have with the 320.
If it's happening, it's not as prevalent as the P320. In those situations,
it's just, I get that that wasn't what he meant, but that is quite funny. Again, somebody just sent me another one. Hey, how about this? This is a professional analysis and consulting for 6 Hour. Another fun little report on December 1st, 2020. Well, no, I'm going to read the introduction. On December 1st, 2020, Miss Brittany B. Hilton was exiting her office at the Bridge City Police Department in Bridge City, Texas, where she was a detective. As she was moving around a small file cabinet, the 6 Hour P320X carry 9mm discharged uncommanded while fully secure in an approved holster in her purse, causing severe and permanently disfiguring injuries. Now, in a purse, I am less inclined to believe it, because I don't know what women put in their purses, but it's usually a lot of stuff. So if there was a steel man to SIG in this case, that'd be rough. Now, you're not going to show me something disgusting, are you, on here? We're just looking at parts first.
I didn't go through all
20. Well, because I don't actually want to show pistol injuries in the
no. They specifically highlighted page 15.
Mm-hmm.
The vibration testing.
Mm-hmm. Well, sorry, I'm just reading this. Oh my gosh, yeah. So this is the one where in their own vibration testing, they got 3 what they consider light strikes. So in October 2021, Sig Sauer had vibration testing performed nearly a year after the subject incident. The first tests performed were vibration tests, which included sinusoidal vibration at various frequencies and shock jolt testing. While the summary report from the testing facility states that no primers were struck, there were at least 3 tests that light strikes were identified from the photographs in the report. Since not all test iteration photographs clearly showed the primer cartridges, there could have been more. And so here you have pictures of the light strikes in the primers in question. Now, important to note, if this is a officer carrying a gun, a duty gun, it is most likely carrying duty ammunition. Some duty ammunition has extremely soft primers to ensure reliable ignition. So SIG could test with a really hard primer, be like, listen, we can never get these things to go off. And then an officer carrying with a very soft primer with a, quote unquote light strike might actually be able to get it to go off. So again, that's all you have to do. If you look into, and I get this all the time where people say, hey, it's never been documented. There's no evidence. There's no proof. And then it's like, well, have you ever actually read just one of the court documents in the case where they lost? And they're like, oh, here's the wear. Here's how the parts work. Here's all the different things that may or may not have gone wrong or caused the issue, right? You can read all these documents. They're extremely boring and they're extremely dry, which is why it's not popular to actually go through them all. And then you have this guy who's like, actually, it's never happened, bro. Never happened. Fresh Peanut Shake for $5 says, you think Mac would have worn a poncho to his gauntlet test, as is a tradition? Yeah, it might have saved him some wash time later on. Josh for $5 says, Richard is my 3rd favorite BBW. Very nice. Your 3rd favorite, huh? Those other 2 must be. Very nice. Totten Dugs for $2 says, Mac, once you go black, even Sigas don't want you back. Wow. Thank you for the $2. Sig, $4.99 says, Trench, time for your expertise. How do you carry a gun in your purse? Oh my gosh. Rough, man. Solo Gordo for $4.99 says, with Glock discontinuing multiple models, is it plausible to say Glock is freeing up production to take over contracts when SIG gets canceled?
Well, they do have the new modular
Yeah, that's true. They do have a patent for a new modular pistol, which we took a look at not too long ago.
I think you guys looked at that while I was out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, so again, Adam says at 3205 in the Mac video, they state that none of the guns fired during their vibration testing. They say that because they didn't get the primers to go off. However, there are pictures of 3 light strikes, right? So it is conceivable if we're getting light strikes that perhaps there could be a world in which you get a not so light strike. I think that's reasonable. So, yeah.
I carry a 365. I carry the appendix carry.
I left that in there because it's very funny that the guy defending the 320 does not carry one. Very important to note that he does not carry one.
I would be interested to know how many SIG employees do carry a 320.
I think that number has gone down. That's what I would say. In fact, possibly to some of the people that I've talked to, most of them have switched to 365s or other guns entirely.
So. It happens so fast that they usually will swear they didn't have their finger on the trigger. In fact, GBRS just posted a pretty good video of same thing happening on the range, and it happened so quick. All
right, SIG, GBRS, Mac in a room together. Who gets sucked off first?
Slow it down. And he saw the guy's hands pop back up after it happened.
After the discharge. So his hand was on the pistol when it discharged.
Yes.
Okay.
You can see it, finger on the trigger. It was also a very clear video. So anyway,
yeah.
Yeah, that was very clear. Very clear video.
Yeah, it was very clear, suspiciously clear. Now listen, I'm not going to say that that was set up in a counter to the AHT video that somebody maybe like Trench said might have been set up, but it was just very convenient. It was at a very good time. That's all I'm saying. It was very convenient at a very good time.
And a perfect angle and a very high quality.
Slow motion. Yeah. Some might say set up. You never know.
Convenient. Possibly a coincidence.
Coincidence, you say?
Anyway,
yeah.
What else you got for me?
So,
and I know that there's going to be a lot of angry users.
Also, I do want to say that much like Mac, I get paid to wear a primary arms hat for the entire stream. They pay me $1,000 an hour, which is very kind of them to sponsor this stream. If they did want to sponsor somebody just for wearing a hat or putting a banner ad in your entire video, instead of paying Mac, you could, pay somebody slightly more moral.
Hey, I'll undercut you and I'll do it for $180.
$180? That's not bad.
Hey, that's what the SIGs were going for, so I feel that's appropriate.
I want 1 SIG per stream, $180.
No, I want the 180. I'd rather buy a high point.
Yeah, that's true. Just take the money.
And I know that there's going to be a lot of angry users out there, but we've gotten down the road of if I make a mistake,
they're angry because they have holes in their legs, sir, or their ankles, even. There's a lot of angry servicemen that have related or reported issues with their 320s, and they're not angry because it's like, SIG. It's like they're like, ow, my SIG. It's very different. So. Yeah, it's weird to be like, they're just angry. They just hate us. They're just haters. Listen, guys, I put my shades on to block out the haters, okay? I get paid by the pudding company. Thank you, Bill Cosby's nephew. That is very good. Yes.
Pudding pops.
Yeah, he's been putting his dick where it don't belong. That's what I'm going to say.
I'm surprised at how open you guys are to having people come in to show us everything.
Weird. It's like we almost have nothing.
That they showed him everything. All right. Yes, sir. Every inch.
I'm surprised at how open you guys are to having people come in to show us everything.
Weird. It's like we almost have nothing to hide.
What angry servicemen? The ones with holes in their legs, sir. Like the guy who got shot in his ankle when his holster bumped into another holster. Yikes. That would make me angry.
That I was thoroughly impressed with the open door policy. I'm supposed to be a consumer advocate and let me come in. Now, of course, I carry SIG products. There's SIG products I love. And now the P365.
I just edited those together because I thought it was funny. It's like I'm supposed to be a consumer addict. I love SIG. There's lots of products I love. I carry a SIG P365 every day. I knew it was going to be revolutionary. It's all just carrying water for SIG or like gassing them up. It's a gassed up mid on the left. That's what we're dealing with here.
That was one of my favorite carry guns. But I knew when you guys came out with it, it was going to be a game changer.
Yeah.
So just before it came out, I started seeing posts about, oh my gosh, SIG changed its owner's manual. Now they're telling you not to carry your gun loaded. That is suspicious. Why now?
Yes, Mac, it is suspicious that they did it right now. And the cope is going to be, well, listen, everybody else's manual already says that, except for Glock. Everybody else's manual already said that. We changed ours because our lawyers told us to after we got sued for millions of dollars and lost several times. And we have multiple active litigation cases with up to 30 plaintiffs each. So, yeah, our lawyers told us to put that in there. But listen, guys, other people also have silly things in their manual, so we just copied them.
What we have to keep in mind, and what we're trying to keep in mind, is that we don't know the philosophy of use as.
I just want to say that Nut and Fancy.
Damn.
Nut and Fancy's vernacular is unrivaled, undefeated, and still kicking. That philosophy of use is a current term used in a SIG marketing cope video. That's my favorite thing. SIG or Nut and Fancy stays winning. And you know what's funny is he had a Gen 1 MCX blow up, and he had one of the original crosses blow up on it. So quite fitting.
It's a catchphrase that's out there now, or we have to take for granted that they're going to read the owner's manual and use that as a guide on how to actually operate this firearm, from the loading of the magazine to how to actually load it, from start to finish. We have to take that into consideration to let people know that the most effective safety would be to carry a round not in the chambers. Basically,
I agree that the most effective safety is to carry without. It's undeniably true that not carrying a gun with a round in the chamber, and in fact, not even having a loaded magazine, is the safest way to carry a 320. Undeniably true.
The safest way to carry a 320 is to not carry a 320.
Well, I mean, I think it's very safe to carry a 320 without a round in the chamber. It's just like any other piece of
completely empty mag and everything.
Well, even with a loaded mag, I'm not one of those guys that's super like crazy about that sort of thing. Where they're like a gun with an empty chamber and a loaded magazine. You know, some people are really safety Sams about everything, and that's fine to be. But that's not something I'm ever worried about. So, I mean, I would feel 1,000,000% comfortable carrying a 320 without a round in the chamber, because it's an inert piece of plastic and metal at that point. It's nothing.
The language says, and you can put it up on the screen to see exactly what the quote is. Now, with all that said, Sig Sauer does not endorse carrying a method of carry.
The lawyers told me I cannot recommend you carry one with a round in the chamber, but if you choose to, that's on you.
If you're a law enforcement agency, if you're in the military, if you're a professional end user, or if this is your philosophy of use, if you carry around in a chamber, it's perfectly safe. It's perfectly fine. We're not mandating. We're not putting language out there that says you shouldn't carry this gun without a round in the chamber. We're simply saying.
No, you did. You put that in your safety manual, sir.
Putting language out there that says you shouldn't carry this gun without a round in the chamber. We're simply saying there's an option that's even safer.
But yeah, that's the extent of my questions. I thank you for answering all the questions that I had. I know some of them probably a little uneasy. It's like, oh, here we go.
Not at all. And I will put my reputation.
Again, it wasn't hardball. It wasn't softball. It wasn't even t-ball. There was very little. Was there any pushback in the video? Was there any like, hey, what about this one? What about this case right here where you guys lost and had this XYZ issue with the pistol? What about that? What about this?
What about the guy who died?
No. They can't talk about that, Richard. That's active litigation.
Oh, I thought they settled with the widow.
Oh, did they settle that? Then they can't talk about it because they signed an NDA. But the reason we settled was because we were completely innocent. Yeah.
At stake. I'll
Sorry, I need to back up so you guys can listen to his full closing statement here.
Oh, here we go.
Not at all. And I will put my reputation at stake. I'll be willing to bet the nearly 1,200 law enforcement and military veterans out that work for this company. They would base their reputation on this as well. That if we knew there was a problem, if we thought there was a problem with this model, a pistol or any firearm or any product we made, we're gonna take a beeline straight upstairs to the C-suite and start talking about it.
So I know that
now I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate here. I think that there are probably lots of really good individuals working at SIG. I think that stops at the highest level, though. I think, factory worker up to upper management, not top level, but like upper management, mid to upper level management. There's probably some really good people working there that truly want to put out good products. I think at the top, it is a money and a borderline crime syndicate at the top about how do we manipulate and get the most contracts with the least amount of work possible, or the worst products possible, or cut as many corners as possible, or lie to our customers about where our parts are made as possible, all that sort of stuff. So again, Phil, personally, he had to do this interview. He had to take the bullet with Mac to do this publicly, which is a rough position to take. I would not, that's why I don't want to work for any of these companies. Cause at any point, if they were asking me like, hey, you need to do this interview and like take the fall or take the heat for some of the issues that we're having, I'd just be like, no. Like, absolutely not. Just fire me. Like, this is not worth my time. Like, get me out of here. This is insane.
If they made me do something like that, I would make sure that the interview would be live, and then I would just,
Oh, like bro, that would be wild. Yeah, go. We'll do it live. We'll have a live conversation. You're like, on October 16th, Sig Cohen expressly directed us to cover up issues regarding the P320 when we lost case X, Y, and Z. Like, that would be very funny. That would be wild.
The guy who pulled the emergency chute slide on the airplane on his last day when he just got fed up. Yeah, if you're going to go out with a bang and grab a drink from the stewardess cart on your way out the door.
Yeah. Huge Ass for 499 says SIG has been banned in 109 ranges, but it's never their fault. It's the holster's fault. You see, we were forced to go off. John 7M7 for 499 says, what's the final word on the P365 reliability wise? I carry 365 XL daily, and I'm wondering if I should trade it in like I did with my P320s years ago. I think that the parts quality is suspect on the P365. However, I have not seen it demonstrated that it is unsafe to carry, just more unreliable than I would like. So if you're worried about shooting yourself, I have not seen that as of yet. So I can't really say one way or the other on that. However, I have seen lots of broken parts. And the first batch had lots of problems and their frames broke all the time. But that being said, it's SIG. Like, how much do you trust SIG? That's your question. If you trust SIG, fair enough. If you want to continue to give them your patronage, fair enough. What would I do? Literally anything else. Thank you for the burning man, John.
I'll still buy used 226s and 229s,
sure.
Right? But I have zero interest in anything Striker Fire that they made. I have zero interest in the MCX, the MPX. The only one that I did want to shoot Andrews, just because I haven't gotten that much time, but he sold it, so it's not gonna happen.
Mm-hmm. Andy Vashon for $9.99 says, that's a lie, Richard. You aren't turning on the camera for less than $1,000. I can't believe I used to support SIG. I feel like I have to go to confession for selling them way back. Habemus Papum, which actually that's a Latin phrase that I'm not familiar with. I believe that has something to do with the new Pope, though. Habemus Papum. Which means and the announcement of the election of the new Pope. Yes. All right. Thank you for the $9.99, sir. Hope you're having a great day. Dunk Them Muffins for $5 says, this is all a ploy by SIG to roll out their version of the EF. Oh, that's right. The rack draw holsters. That's amazing. That's a great idea. The EFA 2K rack draw holsters and win another military contract. Siggers stay winning. That's right. Win another contract with a new holster. That'd be amazing. Somehow SIG would do that, by the way. They would win another contract. Huge Ass for $4.99 says, Ford, during the Pinto disaster, don't drive your car with fuel in the tank. Yeah, it just sometimes spontaneously combusts and kills people. So the solution is just don't drive with fuel in it. That's a good analogy. Thank you, Huge Ass. Ton Dogs for $2 says, the based Sigacost with 6 million anti-Sig medic NDs. Bro, this episode is getting claimed by Tim and unmonetized for sure. Thank you for the $2, Ton Dogs. Fresh Pinochet says Mac advocates for SIG affirming care. Yeah, SIG affirming care. I wonder if your health insurance is going to go up if they ask you, hey, do you carry a P320 perchance? It's like a life insurance question too. Huge Ass for 109 says SIG is the official medically issued sidearm of MAID. Aw, for 199. Thank you very much. Huge Ass.
So it is worth noting that I had somebody reach out to me today and say that they were in a very small supermarket in a community of about 1,000 people outside of Edmonton, Canada, and even they were talking about issues with the SIG P320. Like they happened to hear two guys overheard two guys talking, and they listened in and they said, yeah, they were talking about the issues with the P320 and what's going on with that. And one guy said, yeah, I have one. I disassembled it and it's sitting in the safe until I can get it figured out what I can do with it.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel bad because people own, I mean, there's literally millions of these out in the wild. So it's going to be a problem for a long time. You're going to continue to hear about it because even if they stopped production tomorrow, there's still 3 million of them out there. The anti-aircraft for $2 says SIG is doing the same as Colt decades ago with the 1911s. Yeah. As long as they can still somehow get away with banning the customer, and there are still hardcore SIG defenders out there, like in my videos and Protraban videos, they are out there, and they will repeat the same lines over and over and over again. John 7M7 for 199 says, thanks, I'll play it safe and trade it in for a Shield Plus. I do like the Shield Pluses. I will say that. I shot one of their Performance Center Shield Pluses, and I thought that was, for the money, like a pretty sick handgun for a small gun. Stephen for $5 says, if we make this live stream unmonetizable, there won't be anything left for Mac to claim. That's a good point. Yeah. Actually, just start spamming slurs in the chat if you wouldn't mind, and we'll just all go down together. Okay. Oh, you guys are already doing it. Perfect. Okay. Moving on.
That you guys are constantly doing changes. It would be insane, and I'm not trying to defend SIG guys, but it would be insane to me with all the changes you're making to address anything that you want to, any improvement you're trying to make. It would be insane to me that you would be like, oh, let's slide in a change here and fix this problem and just make this go away.
2 hours later.
So the problem is that they have done that over the last decade. There has been a number of stealth revisions to the P320 where they change geometries, change parts, change out springs, whatever it might be. And they have done that since the beginning of the 320. And people have pointed that out all the way along the road. Is if you take like my SIG is probably from 2018 or something like that, because it's pre-upgrade. If you take one of those versus the 2019 versus the 2020 versus, so on and so forth, you're going to find little differences between all of them. And not just like manufacturing differences, but like parts and geometry changes, like slight variations to stealth fix problems. Because again, SIG is not being public, which is the same reason why I hate PSA and the Jackal, is because there is no less than like 12 different differences between the Gen 1 Jackals. Almost every single part on the Gen 1 Jackals has been changed since their initial release. Were there any announcements of these changes? No. You paid the same price for a crappy Jackal as you paid for a less crappy Jackal. Congratulations. Same with SIG. It's just scummy behavior.
Oh, I may have a fix for your Jackal stock, by the way. I had somebody, one of my buddies sent me some info last night, and I think we got it fixed.
Okay. I mean, I somebody sent me their Picatinny adapter for it, so that's what I've been running on it.
Yeah, it's the CMMG Picatinny adapter.
No, I think it is the PSA one, but then it's a PSA adapter, Picatinny adapter, so it fits on the Jackal as it's supposed to. But then I have a Midwest Industries folding stock. We'll talk about it later, though. This is an offline conversation, not live to 800 people. Let's keep it moving.
So for us to make any kind of mechanical change, it would be crazy. Now, I will say that, a lot of people look at that as beta testing, and just because we come to market with a firearm, a new 365 or new anything, we don't stop testing it. We don't just hunt it and say, you guys figure it out. We're still testing the guns. We're still running.
It's kind of an admission that, yes, they put out the guns and they're still testing them. Again, like the MCX, which we are on the 4th or 5th generation of the MCX. Yes, they abandoned products along the way because they no longer support the MCX, Gen 2, Virtus. Then we're on the Spear and then the Spear LT or something like that. I don't keep up with all the variations. SIG Cross, again, Gen 1, massive problems. And then they do a bunch of stealth updates to fix it. What's another one by SIG where they updated it along the way? Obviously, the 320s and 365 have been updated all along the way. Yeah, it's basically everything they put out gets updated all along the way because they're simply not ready to market, and they push it out anyways and let you figure it out.
Running them through the case paces and trying to make improvements as we go. We're not using, I mean, we do value our customers' word, and we do like to hear from them, and we like to, we want their feedback, but we don't just stop. We're not just washing our hands and saying, oh, we're done with that one. Well, let's move on to the next one. No, we're constantly out there on the range. We're happy to say that right now the 320 it's taking a lot of heat, but man, the guns, it's the toughest, most tested firearm we've ever made, and out of necessity, which is fine,
I do agree with him that it is the most tested firearm that they've ever put out, but it's also given the most problems out of anything they've ever put out. And at some point, you just abandon the design, man. Because if you're literally putting out, they claim like 3 million rounds a year in testing and a bunch of other crap for the 320, at some point, just cut your losses and bring out a new pistol. It's got to be cheaper at some point than trying to hobble along with this garbage rod that you've managed to acquire contracts with.
Just a couple of years ago, Tim made a video where he was pissed off at SIG because they would produce a firearm, make it for a couple of years, and then completely discontinue it and move on to something else. And this is the one time when they're refusing to give up on something and move away and do something else.
Mm-hmm. German Sherman says, speaking of PSA, have you seen the recent stuff about AAC 77 grain OTM problems? Yes, they've had problems since the beginning. I've loved using it so far, but I haven't bought in a few months, and I'm hearing they changed the powder and it's suffering for it. That's the thing, is now they're going to blame it on powder shortages and the fact that they laid off half of their staff. And so, yeah, I would imagine that their QC is going to go down from an already lower point. And listen, AAC from the beginning has been known for blowing up suppressors. Like, that's probably its most notable feature. It's cheap, and every now and again it blows up a suppressor. So, I mean, cost benefit analysis there is not particularly good, at least for me. So I don't buy it.
We stand, and that's why we stand behind it, because we have guys who, that's their job, is to sit here and just beat this gun to death. And
I've seen it.
And and it's just it's great. And I'm glad you're here.
He's supposed to be the consumer advocate here, and he's just agreeing with them the entire time. Come on, man.
I'm glad we can put some of this out there. And obviously, we're going to address a lot of the other things in our video as well. And we just want the truth to be out there. We're not trying to turn people. There's always going to be people who hate us, and people are going to be thinking we're covering up. And there's no changing that. But there are going to be people on the cusp, people who really want to know the truth, who may just not know, or I wonder, because if someone tells you the sky's green enough, you'll start taking another look.
Is it?
It may kind of greenish tint, maybe. So we want to make sure that we're giving people the information they need. And this is awesome. We're glad you could come. And we invite any other naysayers out there. And not that I'm saying calling you a naysayer, because you're not, but we challenge.
He's definitely not. You are correct about that, but I accept the challenge, good sir. I accept the challenge. I will make a trip out to SIG, New Hampshire. You let me play around with your SIG P320s, and we'll see what kind of nonsense we can get up to. That should be quite fun.
I mean, we invite any other naysayers out there, and not that I'm saying calling you a naysayer, because you're not, but we challenge you to come out and do the same thing Tim does. And we have nothing to hide. We'll show you whatever you want to show, and we're glad you can make it. Thanks.
And I am a testament to that. You guys opened the door for me and allowed me full access to everything, showed me all the production, showed me all the testing, and it was very eye-opening for me. I'm very impressed with the facilities I've seen here, and I've toured manufacturing facilities all over the world. And I will say that
I as it fades out to black, he continues to glaze SIG for another like 30 or 40 seconds. Not particularly interesting. Fresh Peanut Schaefer 5 says, Tim, look at the camera and blink twice if your appendix carrying a P320 right now. Yeah. It's just a little rough. Thank you, Fresh Peanut Shape, for the $5. Fresh Peanut Say also says, for another $5, says SIG P320 release version .1337 revision 69.420. It's not a beta test though. It's not a beta. We'll eventually get 1.0 someday. And then Hugh Jasper 199 says, is Mac one of the tribe? I believe he's part of the Leviathan tribe, or at least was at one point. But if you're referencing a different tribe, a more Semitic tribe, I cannot verify that in one way or the other.
He is a fan of IWI.
I know that, yes. But let me see. So that is the SIG response. Now, that is specifically Mac's video on SIG. SIG themselves is going to be coming out with another video in a couple of days, which I'm gonna give you some advice right now for free. $0 consultation fee. Just don't do it. Do not put out a video. Don't do it. That's a bad idea. That's a bad idea. On his own page, let's see here's some of the comments on here, shall we? Because these are quite elucidating. Like a P320 striker, I did not expect this video to drop. 29 minutes in, Glocks are not going off in holsters because basically there are more P320s than Glocks out there. That is laughable plus nonsensical. Everybody stand by for a Ben Steger response. Yes, he has posted his video, which you guys should totally check out. So when SIG sent you the check for this interview, did they send you their list of pre-approved questions as well? Yes, very boring. The fourth rule of gun safety, never carry a SIG P320. With the war in India, will the war in India affect SIG's production capacity of the 320? Very interesting question. SIG rep brought his own personal Glock. Yes. Important to note that all those years he was in the police, he carried a Glock and not a P320. And so the keys never once made his Glock go off, which is also funny. Mac destroying his own channel or what's left of it. Very true. SIG, my baby ain't do nothing wrong. Ain't done nothing. Didn't do nothing, some would say. Intense garbage. Yeah, no kidding. The largest and most intense corporate effort to avoid a crushingly expensive total product safety recall in the history of the firearms industry. They are still gaslighting. Recalling 3.5 million P320s, some of which are in government and military and police contracts, would be wild. They would be sued out of existence, which might be the best explanation. Or the best end. 23 minutes in, and the excuses are insane, and the way the questions are being presented, it's like watching the media ask Biden questions. Very true. Another interview that's going to age like milk. Very true. No shill gun reviews. I'm not sure if he's in here tonight. He says, but the actual video starts at 15:30. I had to suffer through a 55-minute video twice for you guys. Because once to edit it, and then, well, I guess technically, again, part of it tonight. So it was a lot of Mac, which is, I have a very low Mac policy around here.
No Show Gun Reviews is indeed in chat.
Oh, is in chat? Fantastic. I literally dropped my P320 to click on this video. Well, I hope you're still all right. Oh, hey, Jim Dangle, who's also in our chat quite often, says, SIG's official stance, we blame everybody but ourselves. Better off not to say anything. Can't wait to hear Ben's view on this. My SIG is very true. Every holster manufacturer that sees this should stop making holsters for SIG products immediately. I mean, if you're going to blame our holsters, yeah, why don't we just stop supporting your guns? The representative from SIG, so this is my personal gun, a Glock 45. Somehow that is not surprising. Jesse Taylor, who's also probably in here, says, once again, SIG playing the blame game. They blame the users, the holsters, and other gun companies. SIG needs to take responsibility and own up to their mistakes. I hope SIG gets canceled by the Army and the Marines. Well, they're currently under an engineering investigation by the Marines, so nobody knows what's going to happen with that one. SIG, from a pistol you can't trust to a company you can't trust. I think Joey commented that exact same thing on my video this morning. So lots of crossover in this comment section, and I'm very glad to see it. But why don't we listen to Ben's opening remarks on this, because it is quite funny.
One question.
All right, folks.
What's up, homie?
The Hand History Vault brings up a good question. What's the odds of Safariland suing SIG for defamation?
He does mention the series of the holster, but not the actual brand name. And he's not blaming the holster, but just that things can get inside of it. So I don't think that they could sue them for defamation, because it has to be specific and intentional. And like, it would have to say that the Safariland is the cause. And in fact, in one point in the video, he's very explicit. I'm not saying that's the reason for it. So I think, as much as Safariland should make a funny Instagram post and be like, guys, it's not the holster, that would be a funny response to it. Going through a lawsuit would be unfruitful and expensive for both parties. So I think that's a waste of time.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Folks, actually some happenings today with SIG. Many of you already know and are probably waiting for some kind of response. A SIG rep went on the Military Arms channel and had a discussion. I would say it was somewhere. I mean, if it wasn't hardball for sure, I'm not even sure it was T-ball. It was not a very contentious discussion, I'll put it that way, but some interesting things came out of it. It's a 55-minute long discussion. I'll put.
Alyssa Seymour says, I'd like to see stats on NDs with P320s versus all other striker-fired guns. Wonder if that data is out there. That is so hard to compile from all the different police forces, all the different civilians, all the different military contractors. And in some ways, it's not fair to the 320. For instance, if you look at military NDs, it's almost all 320s because they have the military contract. So it's not really fair to look at, you know, a P320 versus an M&P, because if you look at just the military data, there's no M&P NDs because they just don't use them, right? So I would wager that, again, the reason that we're seeing so many NDs of P320s is just because everybody owns them, and there's 3.5 million out there. But in civilians, it's very hard to find all of those because, I mean, you'd have to go through every single report from every county in the country to actually compile all of that data, which would be insane, because not everything just gets published in a major story. Not everything goes to court. Sometimes it's not even reported if it's just like some hillbilly somewhere doing something stupid and he thinks he did it himself or whatnot. So compiling that amount of data, wildly difficult.
Put it down in, I'll put it down in the description if you want to go watch that for yourself.
Not real federal agent. It's different.
And I think you should. I mean, if you're remotely interested in the SIG drama, which I assume that's why you're here. Yeah. So the things covered on there, like, hey, what do you think's happening with the discharges? And then it was showing some holsters. You know, obviously SIG is not taking responsibility for any of the reported uncommanded discharges, and there's stories that they can't replicate it, and you know that they don't think it's happening. I'm not shocked that that's their story. I mean, but that appears to be the story, and they're going to stick to it. Now, there was some kind of funny bits of it that, you know, Focus Trip, for example, has already edited up something like that kind of meme goodness where, you know, SIG rep talking, blah, 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 like edit in some SIGs going off in holsters, like set it to music. You know, it's the stuff of meme magic, that's for sure. But like I said, they're not really copying to anything. So
yeah, and that's his main point, is the interview is so boring. There's nothing in the interview of interest. It's just coping and seething from SIG, and it doesn't make them look good, right? Because it's just they keep. I would love to stop talking about SIG, but I know that SIG's going to release their own video, and then I know that people are going to respond to that, and then Garantham's going to be doing his testing. I'm going to be doing my testing. So I'm going to talk about it at least another 3 or 4 more times in the next couple of months. And the SIG Armor is also about to release his findings. 3 P320s in a trench coat. They released their P320 sear fix. So, I mean, there's so much stuff happening with it that I can't not talk about it and finish the story. So it's gonna keep happening. And that's the thing. It's never going to end. So, in fact, it did not end today. In fact, it's probably just beginning, because as soon as somebody does replicate it, that's when we see every lawsuit just get turned up to 11. And it's going to get wild when that happens.
Yeah, I'm also going to be working on another video. It's going to be just memes and put to music and SIGs going off and SIGs blowing up and all the good stuff.
Huge Ass for 199 says SIG isn't sending us their best. It's unfortunately true. Thank you, Huge Ass, for the 199. Huge Ass for another 199 says, I run a thesis in a match, or run a thesis in a match, or appendix inside waistband, a P320. No, I'd run a thesis. Why wouldn't I? I've thought about doing that at some of the smaller matches where I can run 2 guns, running a limited and a carry optics gun, so I can compete in 2 different divisions just because it's fun. And listen, the thesis double stack 1911, that's like $500 or something. I think that would be hilarious to run, just because it's like the cheapest 2011 out there. So I actually want to get one of those just because they're stupid cheap. And even if it sucks, it's like, well, it's $500. What did you expect for 2011? You know. And rounding us out for the night, Vintage Welfare for $10 says, clearly SIG should just make their own holsters, solve the issue, and make money hand over fist from the trogs who buy anything with SIG on it. It's a win-win for them, and I don't see the... Oh, I see. Yeah. Once it starts going off in their own holsters, it's like, oh.
Yeah, I said this way back. I said they could do what Canic does and include a basic IWB and OWB holster in the box when they sell the pistol. It would be nothing for them to do. They already have the plastic injection molding capabilities and capacities. It would cost them like $11 to put it into the box. We'll round it out at 20 if they throw 2 of them in.
Lance, do you have experience with the DS? I want to get one just because it is so cheap, and it would be funny to compete against, like Athena's in limited optics with a $500 TSIS 2011. I think that would be quite funny. So I might do that at some point when I finally finish up with the 320. That's what I want to do next. So Dunk Them Muffins for $5 says, we are going to build a great big berm and Sig is going to pay for it. Actually, a good meme to end out the stream is actually this one that I found earlier. If you didn't know this, Richard, Sig is actually making their own holsters. Have you seen this?
I have not.
Yeah, this is their new P320 holster. It is safe for all versions of carry. This is the officially licensed SIG P320 holster for a low price of $999.99. These barrels aren't cheap to make, but you too could be the proud owner of a safe to carry P320.
And then I would be arrested by ATF for an unregistered suppressor.
True, yes. The design is very human, true. just rolling around a barrel with a 320 sticking out of it. I think that would be quite funny. BV Luminous says that looks quite gay, not gonna lie. Well, it might look gay, but also having your nuts is less gay, right? Yes, I think I said that right. So
gay.
True. The 320 flashlight. Ugh. All right, homies. Richard, what do you got before we get on out of here?
Well, we passed 2,000 subscribers on the Clips channel. I want to say thanks to everybody. And if you're not subscribed, you are in fact wrong, and you should be, because I take clips from the streams, put them down into little bite-sized segments, and sometimes I throw in some other little fun stuff. And I'm also working on a couple of reviews and maybe even 1 or 2 shorts where I roast a gun in less than 2 minutes. So
I'm going to put that link in chat for Out of Focus Clips, because that channel actually is doing really well. Just the 4-minute clip that I put up out of the stream did like 80,000 views or something stupid like that. Just a 4-minute little clip. And then you edited together a video, a response to GBRS from a stream, which also did really well. So you guys should totally check it out, because it's fun and cool, and you can consume everything, bite-sized pieces instead of sitting through a 2-hour live stream.
And to be clear, those following us over there actually does really help out.
100%.
So
yeah,
I just wanted to say thank you guys for all of that, and look forward to some more fun stuff and a couple of reviews coming up once I can get time to get them edited in a way that I find at least acceptable for my first review. I know it's going to be crap. It's going to not live up to what I want it to be. But at least you guys can roast me in the comments for it.
Right. That's the thing. If something's bad, at least you can make fun of it. And Coyote 6, yes, that is a cello in the background. My wife plays cello, and it's in my room or my office to keep away from the 3 ravenous children.
No, it is in fact the world's largest violin, and you will play it for Sig.
Sig makes me play it. Play the cello or carry a 320. It's like, well, gonna learn someday. So yeah, with all that out of the way, gentlemen, what do we got coming up? I have sectionals this week. I have a level 2 sectional match in Sioux Falls this week, which I got a lot of practice to do for that. And I have another video that I'm working on tonight that'll be out this week for my channel. At least 2 more videos for Gun.Deals this week. And yeah, that wraps up all of the major products. Level 2 sectionals, not level 2 sexuals. It's like the area, not area championships, but it's just like a much higher level match than most other matches. So it's the big match in the area for sure. So
level 2 sexuals?
Are you trying to have sex with me?
Dry fires the Sigatcello. Yeah. Don't do that. But with all that out of the way, gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I will see you in the next one. God bless.